Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you're joining us today. Today we're having Living with Low Vision. It's our series that we love to do a few times a year, and I ran a little bit behind this year and didn't get them done. We try to do one each quarter, so we're doing one here and then one in December. Today we're focusing on Seeing with a Grateful Heart, and we're going to be interviewing Lindsay Kerr and her guide dog Eve. Super, super excited to have Lindsay here. She'll talk more about the picture that we're focused on right now, where she has her guide dog, and then there's actually a statue behind her with a dog. But her and Eve make a perfect pair. So I met Lindsay at CSUN this year in person, and I was having a meeting in the lobby after talking with some folks, and she heard my voice and she recognized my voice and asked if I was Kimberly, and I said, absolutely. And who are you? And we met. I think I had actually maybe been communicating with her. She joined us for some of our webinars, and then she also uses one of our products, which she'll talk more about. But I was thrilled to get to talk to her, to get to meet her. Since then, I've got to know her even more. I'm blown away by her story. So you're in for a treat. So fill up a drink, sit down, because it's kind of like Lindsay and I are on the porch and we're talking to each other today. So welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. And I do apologize. It was my something that happened on my end that made it so that this couldn't happen in July, but things are a lot better now. And I know as time goes on, it'll get better.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Lindsay had a death in her family, and it just made sense to push this out. But it's okay because when we did that, we had a great registration for your first one, but it even went up.
yeah.
So this is good. So Lindsay, before we get into the meat of everything, tell us about this picture. I'm interested. You're in front of a house, and then there's a statue of a dog behind you. Tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, so that was shortly after I graduated with Eve from Guiding Eyes for the Blind in July of 2023. That statue is actually outside the dining hall at Guiding Eyes, and I took that picture with actually a couple of family members who live on the East Coast that were able to join me for my graduation, which because I live on the West Coast in California, that doesn't always happen. So I was extremely blessed to have that support and have family on the East Coast cheering me on through a life changing adventure.
Excellent, excellent. So tell us a little bit about Guiding Eyes. I'm more familiar with, I think, the guide dog schools on the West Coast. So you went to the East Coast. So there's was probably obviously a reason behind that. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I actually am a person living with cerebral palsy in addition to low vision. And so that kind of brings some added challenges as it relates to using a guide dog, at least for me, not for everyone with CP. But so for me, my CP affects my left arm and leg, more or less my arm. And if you know anything about guide dogs in general, they're typically trained on the left. And so I was often told by the guide dog schools here on the West Coast that if they trained a dog for me, it would take up to 3 years for them to train a dog for me because they most likely have to train it on the right. But thanks to the specialized training tools that Guiding Eyes has, they were actually able to train Eve on the left as normally happens. The only adjustments that had to be made were that I would use a biothane leash, which is a lot lighter than leather. And then I also use an offset handle, which is kind of like a crooked handle, but it works for us as my footfall isn't as normal. And so the offset handle actually gives me the ability to not step on Eve as we're walking. So it's all
Wow,
in
wow.
the tools that you use, not always, in some cases it is the dog, but a lot of times it's the tools that are used.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second because I want everybody to see you live. So everyone, this is Lindsay. So
Hi.
I share the screen and I don't make it to where it bounces back and forth because sometimes that's not good either. But I just want everybody to see how beautiful she is and the story she has to share. So We're going to go back to share screen, but I just wanted everyone to have a visual. Excellent. Well, that's interesting. So were you the first person that they did this for, or do they specialize in that?
No, they specialize in this. I actually heard recently they had a grad who has CP also that graduated with a dog. But in his case, they trained the dog on the right because I think for him, it's a little more, he's more impacted both in his left arm and leg than I am. But I mean, with the tools and the techniques that they have, they find a way to make it work.
Wow. That's incredible. I did not know that about that school. And I mean, I've heard great things about them, but I didn't know that they have special training and abilities to do that. So that's wonderful. So we switched slides. We're on the next one. It says meeting Lindsay Kerr, and it says she has an amazing life journey, which we've already started to hear about, but we'll hear more. Success due to out of box thinking. So not only did the guide dog school have out of box thinking, she'll share some other things that she's done that when I heard about them, I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got to share some of these things. Need for self-advocacy. She's a big proponent for that. She'll talk more about why and what she's done and what you can do as well, or help others do. Uh, Dreams do come true. We'll talk about more about where she's at now and all the amazing things she's doing. She also does advocating for others. She has a blog. We'll talk more about that. And she has one of our products that she uses. It's the MagnaLink S, better known as the MLS, and she does use it for work, used it in school, and uses it for home use in some unique ways. So we'll briefly touch on that as well. And then, of course, we'll end up with what's next for Lindsay at the end. So, Lindsay, now there's a picture of you with Eve. I'm assuming you're in New York City, but I'm not positive. And then there's
Yes.
big buildings and the beautiful flag. I mean, it's an awesome picture.
Thank you. Yeah, that was in Times Square. One of the days at Guiding Eyes, if you are a city traveler, which I end up almost everywhere. So they asked me if I wanted to go to the city because I had never gone, and I said yes. And they were like, "Do you want to go to Times Square?" And I was like, "Of course." So that was one of the places that we went on our city day, which was incredible to experience and um, just have time there. And it was even more incredible to travel through Grand Central Station, which I believe we have an image of in a later slide.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about Eve. How long have you had Eve, and how has Eve changed your life?
So I've had her almost exactly 15 months. And I think the ability to confidently go wherever I need to has been the biggest change. I felt like before I was a confident cane traveler, but the moment I picked up her harness handle for the first time and said forward, I had this sense of relief, but also the sense that I could walk at a faster pace, and that I didn't have to think so much about what was on the ground and what I could be stepping on because she takes care of that lower half for me.
That's incredible. Incredible. So now I know since you've had Eve, and we'll jump to that in a minute. I know you have a blog, and but it sounds like because whenever I talk to you, there's a little joke about me. I travel a lot for my job, and there's a little joke of where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Where in the world is Kimberly Klein? I kind of think that about you. I mean, you're all over the place.
Yeah.
It's
Today I'm in the
incredible.
office.
You do travel a lot, so that's exciting. So here's another really cool picture. We've changed the slide again, and we have a picture of Lindsay, and she told me her and Eve are walking the halls of Congress, and it couldn't be more appropriate for the time frame we had last night. But tell me, what the world are you doing in DC? And tell me what happened there, and tell us more about this picture because it's a great picture.
Thank you. Actually, so I try to go every year, but I don't know if next year it's going to happen just based on some things coming up. But I try to go with the National Federation of the Blind to their advocacy week, which is called Washington Seminar. Oftentimes, we're advocating for accessible medical devices, tax credits for assistive technology, web accessibility, and even the Social Security Act in some cases, just to help the greater community have greater access to what we need, whether that be for school, for work, for home.
Wow, I've heard about that trip, and I've heard of, I know some other folks that have gone, and it sounds really impactful. And glad to hear you've done that in the past, and that you'll get to do it hopefully again in the future.
Yeah.
Um, is there usually a pretty large group that goes?
Yeah, I believe last this past year we had about 1,000 people from across the country go, and even through their programming with the Teachers of Tomorrow program, which is where they try to help future teachers of the visually impaired understand what it's like for those that are blind or low vision from the perspective of a blind or low vision person. They also take their Teachers of Tomorrow candidates to DC and show them the advocacy piece so that they're able to instill that in their students.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about NFB. I know you're pretty involved. And again, I have quite a few friends are, and I know, everyone on here probably knows what NFB is, but do a little bit of a history. What is NFB? How involved are you with your local chapter? And that's kind of like some things you and I've talked about, build a support group around you.
Yeah.
And I think that you kind of have a family built into NFB. So talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, so the NFB was founded in 1940, and it's basically grown over time. We have members across the country in various capacities. We even have members in some cases even across the world, and we meet up periodically throughout the year. One of our biggest meetings is the national convention, which next year is happening in New Orleans, but this year happened in Orlando, which I have an image of us in Disneyland also, because or Disney World, which we took advantage of during that time. But throughout the year, we do advocacy work. We try to educate the community on the capabilities of people who are blind or low vision, whether that be just, doing the simple thing of taking a bus or going to school or, in employment and just independently living in our homes. And one of the pieces how we do that is through our Washington Seminar Project and then our conference. And even recently, we we not necessarily protested, but we rallied against Uber and Lyft because one of the issues that our members face, whether or not you're a service animal or a cane user, is that sometimes Uber and Lyft drivers will drive off and leave us behind. And this will happen in inclement weather. This will happen when you're trying to get to doctor's appointments. This will happen when you have a lot of groceries. It doesn't matter where and when it happens, but it does happen when you least expect it. I remember not on this trip to Washington Seminar, but the year before, I was traveling with another guide dog handler, and we had an Uber denial right in front of a DC cop. And the driver was so slick that the cop couldn't even catch him.
Wow. Yeah, we'll talk more about that when we get to that picture, but I'm so sorry. I've experienced it. It's sadly to say we've tricked a few drivers. Like I would stand out front and then the person, I mean, I know this is ridiculous that we have to do this and maybe a little shifty or whatever, but we tried doing it the right way, just being out there. And then I would get the person would come and then my friend would come out with the guide dog and we still have had people leave. I had some gentlemen say, I'm afraid of dogs, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is a service animal. There's like nothing to be afraid of. But I totally have experienced and seen what you're talking about. So it's too bad. And we'll talk more about that. So NFB, if someone had an interest in NFB, is there a chapter in every state?
In most cases, yes, I would recommend, checking their website and seeing if there's a chapter in your area, or simply typing in NFB and then such and such state to then get their affiliate website up. And then if not, reaching out to the national office, which is through their, NFB main page, and finding out if there's a chapter in your local area. And if
Excellent.
not, you might be that trailblazer to open a chapter.
That would be exciting. Definitely, definitely. So that's wonderful. That's great. So I did switch the slide, and we actually do have a picture of you at the Uber and Lyft rally. And then that's the picture on the right with you with Eve, and you can see some people with picket signs towards the back. And then the picture on the left is you and Eve's puppy raiser. So let's talk a little bit more about the puppy raiser and that whole story because that's pretty recent, and
Yeah.
we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so one thing that with Guiding Eyes and some other guide dog schools as well, you have the option to meet the puppy raiser and build a relationship with them. And I actually took that opportunity, and I'd planned to, regardless who I was matched with, if I had the opportunity to do so. But it just so happens that Eve's puppy raiser is a retired teacher. And so I've had the ability to bounce ideas off of her throughout these last 15 months quite a bit. And in doing so, she reached out a few weeks ago and said that she'd be in the California area in the coming weeks. And so I asked her when, and she told me where. And I was like, okay, let me figure out how I can get to Palm Springs, even though it's 2 hours from me, so that we can meet up because it's not always the case that you get to meet the puppy raiser post graduation or even at all in some cases. And so whenever I have those opportunities, I try to jump on them because then it gives us the ability to build greater relationships while also giving Eve the ability to see her puppy raiser again every time. She's always so excited.
So did Eve recognize her?
Oh, yeah. I was trying to get her harness on after being in the car for 2 hours, and she's like, no, I see a friend. I want to go see her first. So, of course, I let that happen because they hadn't seen each other in a while. And after that, she calmed down a little bit. But throughout the day, she was definitely showing off.
Well, it's a really cute picture. It looks like Eve has like a smile on her
Oh, yeah.
face. And I know it's just timing but oh, it's such a great picture. So where was Eve raised?
In Connecticut.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So really far away.
Yeah, that's why I say, like, if she's in California or anywhere that I am, I'm like, let me figure out how to get there.
That is incredible. I love that picture. I mean, it's definitely a frame, something that should be framed. She has a big smile on her face, so do you, and so does Eve. So that's great. I just love it. What a great story. I haven't heard about that too often. I mean, I know a lot of people that have guide dogs and but I have not heard very often that they actually get to meet their puppy raisers. I have heard when they retire their guide dogs, if they're not able to keep them, that sometimes they'll get a hold of the puppy raiser and that the guide dog will go live with the puppy raiser. I've heard that story, but getting to meet that's very unique. So that's awesome. So since we are on the slide of the Uber and Lyft rally, you started talking about it a little bit, but and and I mentioned it too. Do you have anything else you'd like to add about that? Because it's such a sad state of affairs. I would think that the Uber or Lyft drivers could get fined, but I have no idea what the rules are for Uber and Lyft.
In some cases, I have heard they have gotten fined. I know there was an issue, I believe it was 2018, I could be wrong, where they were often called the Uber Six, where there was six blind travelers in, ironically, Orlando for the NFB conference that were trying to go somewhere, and ultimately the police were called because a driver tried to injure one of the passengers,
Oh my.
and he ultimately took a plea. I think he was charged in that case, but um, the travelers were concerned because they were from California, and they were concerned that they'd have to go and testify in his trial and have to take work off to go back to Orlando to testify. Thankfully, that didn't happen, but the media definitely got involved. I know someone who was involved in this, and they said that they had media at their front door shortly after it happened. And thankfully, the people watching their house sent them on their way.
Wow. I mean, obviously, it's not all Uber drivers. We're not saying
No.
Uber and Lyft are bad by any means because they're wonderful, and we've had a lot of great drivers. But just the fact that I guess it's part of it is education. I mean, I've had like obviously sometimes when they drive up and they just leave when they see the dog, that's a different story. But like I said, I was with a friend and I stood out and the ride came up and then I would just educate as soon as the door up. And I have a friend joining us. They're legally blind. They have a service animal. It's a dog. And I would just start talking to the people. And most of the time, that's all it is. It's an educational thing. But you have to have that opportunity to have that conversation. If you're there by yourself, you're not going to leave your dog around the
No.
corner.
Yeah, no.
So I mean, it's a sad state of affairs, and I'm hoping that Uber and Lyft, I don't know what, if any, training that they go through when they come on with these companies. I realize they make sure their cars are safe and all those types of things, and those are great, but I would hope that that would be part of the training, that you're going to have people come on that have service animals and you cannot deny that. And don't be like, oh, my car is too nice to have a dog in it or any of those weird things. So hopefully Uber and Lyft can figure that out. And with you guys drawing more attention to it, I'm hoping that that starts to get solved because it's a sad, it makes me sad.
Definitely. And I think too, I have had positive experiences. I remember after CSUN ended this year, a friend and I went to Disney just for the evening, and we happened to get a driver from um, I can't remember where, but he knew Haben Girma, or he knew the name of Haben Girma.
Oh,
He was like,
yes,
he was
I
like,
know
"Oh my
her.
goodness, she's here!" And he was like all like enthralled, and he was more than happy to take us where we needed to go, and we had a great conversation. So I mean, it's hit or miss. You know what you're gonna get. You just have to kind of just jump out there and go. And if you get that denial, report it to the proper channels, whether that be NFB or DOJ or both, or even the rideshare companies in general, so that they're aware of the issue and they can make proper action that needs to happen.
Yep, I would agree. And then, and it's not just this, it's anything in life. I mean, we have to, like you said in the beginning, self-advocacy. So kind of talk about that. You've had to do quite a bit of self-advocacy for yourself. We talked about it with your education and with testing and with people even coming and telling you, this isn't a good job for you. You're not going to be able to help low vision or blind people because you yourself are legally blind, but you have CP, you have this, you have that, you can't do this. And you've proved everybody wrong. But talk about self-advocacy and how important that is.
It is extremely important. I mean, I've had to do it as simply as, writing a petition up to get an audible signal placed in a position where there was no parallel traffic, all the way up to, as I said before, lobbying on Capitol Hill. And I mean, in some cases, this advocacy is simply showing the person the assistive technology that I use and how it works and how I can complete simple tasks with the technology, and then how students can independently access their materials with the same technologies. I think the other issue with self advocacy that we have with the younger generation of students is that they're often their hands are often held by paraprofessionals and others within the educational system, and then they get to higher education and they expect that same thing. And so it's really important that we instill that self advocacy piece in young children, so that they're able to then independently access their materials, you know, as children, but also later in life as well. And that's something that I stressed to parents in an earlier talk this week.
They're so lucky to have you, Lindsay. That makes me sad too, but you just have to get you and I have a little bit of the same personality, a little bit of in your faceness, I guess, a little bit of, wait a minute, don't tell me I can't do something. We're going to figure it out. And I'm sorry you've had those situations, but it also kind of, you've taken it and it allowed it to make you who you are instead of, oh gosh, they stopped me, they blocked me, that victim mentality of, I guess I can't do this because somebody told me I can't. So kind of address that a little bit because you have a lot of chutzpah. Yours is much quieter than mine is. I listen to you and meet you. You seem kind of maybe like you might be meek, but you stand up for yourself. And so kind of talk about that, how you've had to realize. if it's going to get done, I'm going to have to jump through some hoops or think out of the box and talk about some times that you've done that.
Yeah, so actually right now I'm having to think outside the box a little bit. I am looking at completing my student teaching come spring semester. And just because of one circumstance or another, opportunities have presented themselves, but I've had to turn them down for one thing or another. And so now I'm in a position where I have to do standard student teaching. And so I'm having to work with several stakeholders to figure out where that's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and then how I'm going to keep employment. And um, a lot of it, and it goes along with a lot of the other situations that I've had over time, is just asking a lot of questions and trying to figure out what my options are. So in the student teaching piece, a lot of it is, figuring out who's going to take me and how we're going to get through the different hoops. For me, one of the biggest ones is I can't drive. So, am I going to have to sign a waiver so that other teachers are able to take me with them to the different students? And then as it relates to my employment, figuring out are there different kind of leave options that I can take in order to complete this part of my education while also keeping my employment so that I have something to come back to once I'm done.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to figure out. And I know when I first met you, you had a bunch of opportunities for student teaching. You were trying to decide, which one am I going to take? Which one's the best one? Then you had the death in your family, which of course set and changed your course again because you stopped to handle a lot of that. And so now it almost seems like, wow, I had all these opportunities before. Now I've got these challenges. And you and I kind of talked about that. And I said, it's always hard to see it at the time, but maybe it's good that some of those things happen because there's going to be an opportunity that you wouldn't have even had because you would have, taken one of those other opportunities. It seemed like they were the best opportunity. And you and I talked through that a little bit, and you've got such a great attitude, but still it's hard. It's
Yeah.
disappointing and it's loss. You look at it and it's loss. And you have to keep taking that high road, and you do that so well, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't come at a cost. It's exhausting, it's mentally draining at times. And how do you kind of pep yourself back up? Tell me about your support team around you, because I know community to you is a big thing, and kind of talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, so I think with at least the student teaching piece, knowing that I have people within California that I can reach out to, and that's what I have been doing a lot of is reaching out to a lot of different people to figure out, if their district will be able to take me, and in doing that, I know I'm able to build relationships that way. And who knows, they may be able to write a glowing letter of recommendation that I'm able to use down the line, um, for the next school year. And that's kind of where I've taken it, is thought about it as, although the position didn't work for fall semester this year, it may put me in a better position for fall semester next year, because I'll be able to start fresh, potentially fully done with my schooling. And so then I'm able to show the different employers, like, hey, I do have, more experience than I did the previous year. Would you be better off in considering me for a position with your individual district? Because that was the other thing that I was running into, is that, although I work in higher ed right now, I don't have the classroom experience because I am in my, little hole over here in higher ed, which is great because I see the gaps, but I also am not able to see, why the gaps are happening. I have suspicions as to why, but it's kind of hard to see when I'm not in the classroom day in, day out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I changed the slide. We already referenced a couple of these pictures, but the one on the left is Lindsay at Epcot. She's got her Disney ears on, and Eve again looks happy to be at Disneyland. And then the one on the right we talked about already. It's them both of them in New York. And then the below pictures, the one that's on the left is actually Lindsay using the MagnaLink S, which we'll talk about more in just a minute. And then another great picture of her with Eve. So talk about your adventures at Disney. Did you have a great time?
I did. It was definitely an exhausting 4 days. By the last day when we were in Animal Kingdom, we were all because it wasn't just me. I was traveling with two friends, another guide dog handler, and then a cane user. And by the time we got to Animal Kingdom, we were all just done. It was hot, and we needed a break. And so thankfully, we went to Disney before convention. So we went to Animal Kingdom, and then we had a day in between our Disney trip and going to convention, which gave us time to kind of rest, but also we had a lot of prep work to do because we were helping with the affiliate table. So we had, goodie bags and all this stuff in our room, but it worked out. But yeah, no, Disney was fun. I did learn too that taking more breaks at Disney is needed, which is something that I try to take advantage of living in California. If I do end up at the parks, I'll go for like 3 or 4 hours versus a whole day. Whereas in Florida that was kind of hard to do because I was only there for that limited amount of time. But I think also what helped is, at least for Eve, I have different cooling vests for her since here in California it can get quite hot in the summer. So I knew going to Florida that I'd be running into the same issue. And so I took full advantage of that. And I know in that picture, she is wearing a cooling vest on top of her harness, or under her harness, so that she's able to stay cool while it's 90, possibly 90 plus outside.
Yeah, I can see that in the picture on the left. I'm glad you drew that to our attention because I wasn't sure exactly what that was. I didn't even know such a thing existed. So that's really, really cool. And I mean, Eve, obviously you do such a good job taking care of Eve because Eve does such a good job taking care of you. And a lot of people kind of say, "Oh, it's just a dog." Well, no, it's a lot more. Any dog to me is more than just a dog, but Eve is a lot more than just a dog. Just talk about or you're not raising because Eve has already been raised, but having a guide dog. What are some of those responsibilities, and what are some of the ways that's changed your life as well?
Yeah, so obviously in hot climates, keeping them as cool as possible, the basics of feeding, taking them to the bathroom, that sort of thing. But also, one that I think a lot of people don't even think about is the grooming piece. We have to make sure they're groomed or brushed daily, or semi-daily so that they look their best because if they don't, a public entity can deny us access. And so I take that, fully to heart and I make sure she looks good so that we're not in that situation. And that it not only includes brushing, but making sure our teeth are in good shape and then also trying to prevent ear infections as much as possible because that does happen, and it's when it does happen, it's not fun. I thankfully haven't had to handle that, but I know friends who have, and I've seen it firsthand. And if I can avoid it, I'm going to.
Sure, sure. I mean, and you're so right. I mean, we expect people to respect and say, okay, this is a service animal. So we want that respect, but in the respect on our side or for you is the grooming and all the other pieces. So it's not like a dog that's out there that smells or this or that, where they're like, oh, I really don't want that in my car. You want it to be a good experience. So the next time that that Uber or Lyft driver has that happen, that they go, oh yeah, I had a great experience. I have no
Yeah.
reason to not want this dog in my car. So you do have a lot of responsibility. It's like
Mm-hmm.
raising a child. It's not really quite the normal puppy relationship or dog relationship. It is the dog is with you at all times. And you don't want the dog to smell either because it's with you at all times. So
Yeah.
um exactly. So
Yeah.
things to think about for if somebody's looking that's on here about getting a service animal or they think it's a great fit for someone else and they want to recommend it, it is a great fit and helpful, but you have a lot of responsibility as well. And so It is different than cane travel, but with a cane, you just put it in the corner at night and that's it. You don't have to feed it and bathe it and everything else. So it needs to be a win-win on both sides.
And I think too, you have to have the lifestyle to, you know, travel independently. And I definitely do with all the work that I do across the country. So, you know, that isn't so much of an issue for me now. But of course, it was when I was 16 when I applied the first time. And I think that is the big reason why, you know, that application didn't go as well as it could have.
Sure. Yeah, it's rare. I have one friend that was able to get a guide dog early in high school, actually, and there's so many reasons why that's denied. For one, high school situation for the dog might be stressful on the dog, and all kinds of things. She lived in a remote area, the school wasn't as crowded, and because she was in a remote area and had to travel a lot of remote places, they made an exception. But you're right. Usually it's a certain age they're looking at, a lifestyle and temperament of the home for the dog
Mhm.
because obviously it's all very important and plays into the decision that they make. So, well, thank you for being a good mom to Eve. Eve's
Yeah, yeah.
lucky. Eve is
Um,
lucky. So the next slide we have does have some pictures of a product called the MagnaLink S. This is one of our products that has been around for some time. It does allow people to plug it into their computer. It works in a PC environment, which that's what you're using it in. You'll talk more about that in a minute. Mac, Chrome, and an iPad. You can also plug it into just a monitor. Um, and I know you use it a little bit for all kinds of things. You even sent me a really cool video yesterday that we won't have time to show, but you can still talk about it.
yeah.
So on the picture on the left, we show somebody using it in a school. It's pointed towards a board because it has a camera that's a 10x optical zoom. It can do distance, it can do document and self-viewing. Picture in the middle is the unit by itself without any cables or anything. And then the picture on the right is also a classroom, but it's doing document viewing, looking down versus looking across. So tell us about this product. So first of all, let's talk about Voc Rehab because that's kind of um, been important to you. Voc Rehab's been involved with you getting your products. And then through Voc Rehab, they obviously have someone come and meet with you, show you products. You have to determine what's the best product for you. And with you being so transportable or moving from place to place, you needed something small and lightweight. So kind of talk about that experience about Voc Rehab, why it's important, and then you can kind of get into how you use this product.
Yeah, so I have been a client of vocational rehabilitation since I was 17, and my needs for assistive technology have kind of evolved over that time. I know when I first was with Voc Rehab, I needed a lot of I needed access to Braille materials so that I was able to take my notes in class. Independently. And then as I transitioned into a 4 year university setting, I realized that there was a lot of math courses I had to take. And so one of the biggest challenges that I was impacted by at that time was seeing the board. And through a different agency, I had a device available to me that gave me that ability, but it was not as portable. And so once I started my master's program, I went back to Voc Rehab and I was like, you know, hey, I'm starting my master's program at San Francisco State, and I live, you know, in LA, and I have to commute between both areas multiple times a semester. You know, I need something available to me that I'm still able to see the board, but that I'm able to stick in my bag and actually take on planes if I need. Um, and so I reached out to one of their vendors, and one of their reps came to see me and showed me several products, including the MagnaLink S, and that came to be what was going to work best for me at the time because I could connect it to my Surface Pro and my iPad if I so chose, and it has been like the best choice I could have made because you know, I'm able to connect it to multiple devices, but also I'm able to take it with me wherever I need to. And then, you know, as I'm now completing are going to be completing my student teaching and observations need to happen of students, I can see using the MagnaLink S being extremely helpful to be able to see what my students are doing at one end of the room and then sitting at the other end to take my reports to identify what their needs might be and then go from there. But then also in the graduate setting, I have found using the MagnaLink S and the software really helpful because a lot of my professors have decided to physically scan books so that we don't have to buy them. But the drawback to that is that their quality of scans is horrible. And so I'm able to use that same software to then audibly read through my content and then write papers and that sort of thing as I need to.
Wow. So you use it a lot. It sounds like almost daily.
Yep.
You even use it for personal. Yesterday you sent me a video of you using it in a cool way that no one I had never seen anybody doing. So talk about that for a little bit. How
Yeah.
you use it for personal use.
Yeah. So as I have mentioned before, I have CP and it does affect my left side. And so, since I have been using a guide dog and that sort of thing, I've realized that I need to be seen by an occupational therapist. And I'm glad I did that because they showed me the Zynex, which is a TENS unit and helps with electrical stimulation, which can help with pain, but also regaining function. And one of my occupational therapist concerns, though, in showing me this product was my ability to be able to see the screen. And I was like, well, you know what? I have some tools at home that could make this possible. Let me try some things. And so, what I ended up doing is putting my Zynex unit under my MagnaLink S. And as long as the backlight was off, I was able to then see where what modes I had on my different electrodes, and then I'm able to adjust as needed. But as I've learned the device itself, I've kind of been able to use non-visual skills to, manipulate the different settings as needed. But if I need to be able to see what I'm doing, then I use the MagnaLink S to make those changes as necessary.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that it's helped for that. And then I know you've talked about too, you're going to reach out to the company because it would be
Yeah.
nice for people that don't have these tools that they could make accessible controls, make maybe it talks or obviously there's all different options. But I'm glad that it's helped for you in those capacities as well because you want to get a device that's going to be useful to you across the board. Um, I want to talk about what's next for you? And I know you don't totally know, none of us know,
Yeah.
but like what if you could name the perfect scenario, what would that be for you?
Completing student teaching in spring and then getting a teaching position for next fall somewhere, hopefully in California, but who knows. And then being able to finish the induction piece of my credential and then going on to working in whatever capacity I end up in. um, I think also being able to have that higher level of education is huge because I'm actually the first one in my family to have a master's degree. None of my siblings do. And so, to show that this is possible is huge. And I know that it's going to, not only make a difference in my life, but those around me as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. You talked to me, and I thought this was really interesting about this is when you've been doing some student teaching and helping people that needed Braille assistance or other things like that to where you in school were not provided assistance, to where you struggled, where you were frustrated, and you were able to come in and help some of these students. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, one of the issues that I was impacted by when it came to learning Braille because of my limited use of my left hand and arm is that normal Braille devices typically are used with two hands. But since I don't have the full use of my left hand, I've had to use one handed devices. And so I've had to not only help others that are in the same situation, but also help the teachers understand that these tools do exist. We do have a one-handed brailler, and then there are several braille devices on the market with one-handed modes, and so that gives the one-handed users access to the devices themselves, and actually helps them open more doors because they're able to write documents on word processing software similar to what their sighted classmates are able to do.
That's incredible. I did not know that about certain Braille devices, and that's so great that they have, those options, and you know which ones do because you're using them.
Yeah.
And it's not every day that obviously someone that's using a Braille device, obviously it's a very small segment maybe that's using it with one hand. But I even think of people that can use both hands, but wouldn't it be nice to have that one hand free for something else, So there's all
Yeah.
kinds of reasons for that. I didn't think to have that up there, but we do have a one-handed keyboard that we offer. It's called the Tippy. I know you and I have talked about
Yeah.
it a little bit. It's made in Europe. We don't make it. We are the US representative. So if you have questions about that, I'll give you my contact at the end, and I can send you information on the Tippy keyboard. It's a very unique looking keyboard, and what the part that's so unique is it tips over. That's why it's called the Tippy. And then you take the little bottom piece off where you would rest your palm, and then you can turn it over. So for left hand or for right hand. So it's a really cool keyboard. We're proud to represent it and have been able to be the US representative for this product. So if people have questions about that, they can reach out to me. But the next slide, I skipped a couple and I'll go back. But the next slide I have up is Lindsay's contact information. This is the picture of her in front of where she talked about with the guide dog on the statue, and where she finished her schooling. We have her email address. So if you have more questions after we're done today, feel free to reach out to her. And it's Lindsay, Lindsay, Kerr, Kerr, 10, so the number 10 at yahoo.com. That's Lindsay Kerr 10 at yahoo.com. But she's going to talk about her blog a little bit, and she does have an exciting blog. And the link is here for the blog. When we send out the recording, anybody that registered, we always still send you the PowerPoint, and these links are live. But the link for the blog is https://www.adventures, that's plural, adventureswitheve.com. So talk about your blog and talk about your favorite adventure with Eve.
Yeah, so I have documented my journey to getting a guide dog from application to present day. And I think, in this documentation process, two of my favorite adventures were obviously going to New York in class, but also going to Disney and, all of that, all of the aspects that led up to that, because we had to do a lot of work to be able to independently do that, and do it successfully too, because I've seen teams that didn't make it through, especially 4 days of Disney, and that's a lot for a human, but imagine a dog. So I'm glad we were able to do that, and it's actually something that I will be blogging later on as to the tips and tricks to how to navigate through theme parks with service animals. And I know not every service animal can actually do that, but there are ways you can do it safely.
That's cool. That's cool. Very neat. So definitely check out her blog because there's a lots of interesting articles and things up there. But also, if you have questions for Lindsay that we don't cover today, make sure you reach out to her via email. Again, Lindsay Kerr, Kerr 10 at yahoo.com. And the blog is www.adventureswitheve.com. So I do want to go back because our next Living with Low Vision is coming up in about 1 month. It's Thursday, December 7th at 1 o'clock Eastern. So we always have them at the same time. This is a little different day. Well, this one is today too, because normally we do Tuesday. But when I interview folks, I let them pick the day because they're busy. They're in the middle of working or going to school. And we'll be meeting with Paige Miller. She is a law student and has a lot of really interesting adventures to share as well. The link up is there for you to register now if you would like to do that. We always have these live on our webpage, excuse me, and that's just www.lviamerica.com/webinar. And she's got a lot of interesting stories to tell too. I've never met anyone that with low vision and or legally blind that has gotten their or is has gotten or is getting their law degree. She'll talk more about that, but she's studying family law and advocacy. So another interesting story by another young lady that's very impressive. So we do hope you can join us for that. And let me see. I think I need to go forwards now. If you have more questions about anything that we talked about today, of course, you can reach out to Lindsay. But if you have questions just about LVI or any of our products, feel free to reach out to me. Before I close out with that, uh, is there any questions that anybody wants to put into the chat? If so, now is a great time to do that. Alt H in the chat. I know we covered a lot of topics. I would love to ask you, Lindsay, what's one of the hardest things that you've had to accomplish in all of your journeys?
I think my educational journey has been the hardest because of all of the doubt that I've had from those around me, whether it be teachers or other professionals in the field, and even medical professionals at certain points.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. What do you think is your greatest accomplishment?
Um, I think just all of the thing, like being able to make it to this point and being able to, gain employment because, as we know, for our population, the employment statistics are not great. And so to be one of the few that have employment is huge. And, although I am in a position where it's kind of lower on the totem pole right now, I know that's going to help me in obtaining whatever I set for myself later on.
Absolutely. And as you move through everything and continue, you are changing lives and helping people every single day. And as you, continue to student teach and then move on to other things, I mean, I just think of, I've met you, so I know there's nothing that's going to stop you. And I know that you've got a good support team with NFB, with friends, with family. And I'm excited and proud to see what's happening for you. Um, there's some comments in the chat saying, great job, Lindsay. Thank you for sharing. You've shared a lot of encouragement and great information, and I know you have a lot more to share. So again, people, please don't hesitate to reach out. I want to say a big thank you to Keith for joining us today, who's been with our Living with Low Vision, and Andy, who actually, I won't get into all the last names and everything, but he actually did work with Lindsay and
Yeah.
introduced the S and help through nothing's, I wouldn't say nothing's ever smooth, but sometimes we have to work hard to get good things. And Lindsay went to plug her unit in and we had some issues with cables and cords and activation codes, but we're always here to help. So that's the great thing about her is she doesn't stop, she doesn't give up, and nothing seems to be a stumbling block that's so big. But that means she has to think out of the box. She has to self-advocate. She has to not get into the mode of victim, but the mode of I'm going to go out and do this. And by her doing that, she's impacting so many other people. So I'm very, very thankful for that. Lindsay, what do you do for fun? What's some fun things that you do?
So I a lot of going to Disney is one thing, and then also I'm always happy to curl up with a good book when I can, but hasn't happened so much now just with school. But that, and then just connecting with friends as I'm able to, and we will get up to different things, and also traveling. I think also with the different things that I do. being able to travel to the different places is huge because I'm able to, see new places, but also meet new people. And then you never know what kind of food you come up and find as you're traveling. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Lots of fun. Well, I see lots of great adventures for you and Eve. I'm hoping to get to talk with you again at CSUN this year or one of the conferences coming up. Or I come to California quite often, and I'd love to next time I'm going to be there meet up with you. So I'll keep you posted. So if you
Definitely.
guys have more questions, we are getting to the top of the hour. Feel free to reach out to us. I am Kimberly Klein. You can reach me at 702-468-6611. You can call or text me. You can also email me at Kimberly, Kimberly .Klein, it's CLINE at LVIamerica.com. If you have ideas for future webinars or feedback on any of our products or anything, feel free to reach out to us at feedback, but copy me on that as well. But it's feedback, FEED, back, BACK, at LVIamerica.com. We're excited to introduce everybody to Lizzie Harris. Lizzie is new to us. She's been with us for, I think, going on 3 weeks, and she took over the position that Catherine had before and will be helping out more on webinars. So eventually you won't have to listen to me every time and you'll get Lindsay. So we're excited to have Lizzie on board. If you want to reach out to her or have any questions about anything, she can answer questions about the Tippy or any of our products as well. And she's 423-822-8660. That's 423-822-8660. And you can also email her at Elizabeth. It's actually her full name. We call her Lizzie, but it is Elizabeth. So Elizabeth .Harris at lviamerica.com. Everybody, thank you for joining. I hope you have a great day, and we'd love to have you join our next webinar in December. So feel free to go on our website and log in and sign up. Do you have any parting thoughts for anybody, Lindsay?
Um, I would say just, although things may be hard now, take the time to think about how things can be done and go after whatever you set your mind to and, use your resources as necessary.
Absolutely. Such great advice. It could be tough now, but look around. There's always people and walk a mile in somebody's shoes. We don't know what other people are going through just because we can't see exactly. Maybe they might have other unique abilities that we don't know about. Maybe they have learning difficulties, or certain people have what I would call hidden, I hate that word disability, so I don't say it, but hidden unique abilities. And let's just be nice to each other. Let's take a minute, let's take a pause, and let's just be nice to each other. A smile goes a long ways. Lindsay, thank you so much. I think the world of you. And if there's anything I can do in the future by helping you or giving you a recommendation for anything, you've got a friend in me, and I'm just so thrilled that you've taken the time to meet with us today.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day, everyone.